Amid the ongoing Horner saga, the consensus is clear. If Helmut Marko departs, Verstappen might follow suit and bid Red Bull adieu. With Hamilton's surprising move from Mercedes to Ferrari, Verstappen's options seemed limited. However, the plot thickens. Now Aston Martin emerges as a potential destination for the Dutch driver. The stakes are high and the drama unfolds. Let's dive in and unravel the intrigue. Not so long ago, it seemed unlikely that Max Verstappen would leave his successful team during the ground effect era of Formula One. It was surprising to think that he might give up a car that could potentially win championships to join another team. However, recent events involving Christian Horner have shaken up the world of Formula One and revealed tensions within the team. The exact details are still unclear, but it seems that Verstappen doesn't want to continue if Horner remains as team principal, and he also wants Helmut Marko, a close supporter, to stay. Back in March 2022, Verstappen signed a contract extension committing him to the team for 7 seasons. This decision came after he won his first F1 world title in a controversial race at the 2021 Abu Dhabi GP. The contract was a significant commitment for both Verstappen and the team, as it covered the first 3 seasons of the new F1 regulations and the introduction of the new Red Bull powertrains engine, which was initially expected to be branded as a Porsche engine. This long-term commitment gave the team more leverage when negotiating partnerships, as potential partners knew they had Verstappen on board for the long haul. One of the partners attracted by this commitment was Ford, who stepped in to support the engine project when the Porsche deal fell through. It's been 2 years since Verstappen signed his contract, and with 3 titles under his belt and a 4th on the horizon, it seems unlikely he'll see out the remaining 4 years. Horner's recent comments are quite telling. In Bahrain, he was firm that Verstappen wasn't leaving, citing the strong team around him and their past successes. However, in Jeddah just a week later, while he still insisted there was no reason for Verstappen to go, there were hints that the mood had shifted. He acknowledged that if a driver doesn't want to be somewhere, they'll find a way out. He emphasized that they wouldn't force anyone to stay against their will, whether it's a driver or someone in another role within the team. The situation is complex, especially with the uncertainty surrounding the Horner-Marko dynamic. There's also uncertainty about which team will have the best engine in 2026, making it a tougher challenge for newcomers like RBP, Ford and Audi. Considering these factors, moving to another team might not be such a tough decision. Additionally, in Formula One, there's a pattern where top drivers often achieve their initial success with their nurturing team before moving on to new opportunities. We've seen this with Schumacher and Benetton, Alonso and Renault, Hamilton and McLaren, and Vettel and Red Bull. It might sound like a cliche, but all those drivers were seeking new challenges and the opportunity to work with different people in a fresh environment to prove themselves elsewhere. Verstappen has been with Red Bull for a long time, including his time at Toro Rosso. If he stays for the full duration of his contract, it would be much longer than the stints mentioned earlier. The Verstappen we see now in 2024 is very different from the teenager who started in Toro Rosso in 2015. Even in just the past 2 years since signing his long-term contract, he has matured further and taken on the role of a world champion, speaking openly about his dislike for the long F1 schedule and the showbiz aspects of the sport. He also made it clear that he doesn't plan to stay in F1 for another 10 years and has interests outside of racing that he wants to pursue. Given all of this, even without the tensions at Red Bull and uncertainty about the 2026 engine, Verstappen would likely be considering whether he wants to see out his contract or move to another team for a fresh start and renewed motivation. This is similar to what Hamilton did by leaving Mercedes for Ferrari. With Hamilton leaving Mercedes, it's a natural alternative for Verstappen. Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team principal, tried to sign him in 2014 when Verstappen was shining in European F3 races, but couldn't offer him an immediate F1 race seat. Red Bull could, so Verstappen chose that path. Now, after a decade, it seems like the right time for Verstappen to move to Mercedes. It makes sense to join a team that was dominant for so long and is expected to have a strong package in 2026. Wolff faces a dilemma with Russell, who is seen as Mercedes' future after Hamilton, and Antonelli, who could potentially join the team soon. Antonelli might move up to Mercedes in 2025, although his F2 season hasn't started well. However, there's still time for him to improve, especially with Mercedes planning extensive private F1 testing after he turns 18. Behrman's strong debut with Ferrari in Jeddah is timely. He can be a benchmark for Antonelli in F2 and has shown that a teenager can perform well in a top team. This gives Wolff leverage to argue that Antonelli could do the same for Mercedes in 2025. Russell and Antonelli would make a formidable duo, making it challenging for Wolff to find a place for Verstappen. While sending Antonelli to Williams for a while seems like an option, Vowles, the team boss, can't guarantee him a seat due to other young drivers and the team's long-term interests. For Verstappen, there's a simple alternative while waiting for the situation at Mercedes to clear up. Moving to Aston Martin could be a simpler option if Alonso decides to leave and opens up a spot. Alonso hasn't made up his mind yet about racing in 2025, and he's considering his options. He might join Mercedes, but that's uncertain because there's a lot of competition, especially with Verstappen in the mix. Alonso doesn't have a contract right now, so being considered by teams like Mercedes is a good sign for him. He needs to decide if he wants to continue racing in Formula One and commit fully to it. He knows he needs to make this decision soon, both for himself and for the teams waiting for his answer. Aston Martin really wants Verstappen on their team. Their owner, Lawrence Stroll, is willing to do whatever it takes to get him, just like he convinced Vettel and Alonso to join in the past. Verstappen could be the key to making Aston Martin a top contender and weakening Red Bull's chances. Overall, the situation is complex, with Alonso considering his options and Aston Martin aiming for Verstappen, which could change the dynamics of Formula One. Moving to Aston Martin could be a more straightforward option, especially if Alonso decides to leave and opens up a seat. Alonso hasn't made a firm decision yet about continuing in Formula One for 2025, so he's weighing his options. Alonso is also being considered by Mercedes, but like with Verstappen, there's a bit of a bottleneck in terms of available spots. The difference is, while Verstappen might hesitate to join Mercedes with just a one-year contract, Alonso might find that appealing for now. Alonso mentioned he doesn't have a contract at the moment, so being considered by teams like Mercedes is a positive sign for him. He needs to decide soon if he wants to fully commit to Formula One, as it requires sacrificing a lot of other aspects of life. Aston Martin's top choice is Verstappen, and their owner, Lawrence Stroll, is determined to bring him on board, just like he did with Vettel and Alonso. Verstappen could be the missing piece to make Aston Martin a strong competitor and weaken Red Bull's position. For Verstappen, joining Aston Martin makes sense if Alonso leaves. It offers a clearer path without the pressure of promoting young talents. Also, knowing Lance Stroll as his teammate provides stability. Aston Martin's upward trajectory is attractive, especially since it will become the Honda Works team, which means they won't rely on Mercedes anymore. Verstappen has a good relationship with Honda and trusts their future performance. Stroll's efforts in building a new facility and assembling a strong technical team, including familiar faces from Red Bull, make Aston Martin an appealing choice. Verstappen appreciates the straightforward decision-making process at Aston, without corporate politics. Overall, joining Aston Martin could offer Verstappen a competitive package and a more stable environment compared to other options. Maybe it's not the most important thing, but if Verstappen joins Mercedes, he'll have to do a lot of promotional stuff besides racing. On the other hand, if he chooses Aston Martin, Stroll will make sure he only has to do the minimum outside of race weekends. With a packed schedule of 24 events, having some free time is crucial for every driver, especially someone like Verstappen, who's been busy racing since he was a kid. Ultimately, every top driver wants the best car. The best ones believe they can turn a nearly winning car into a title contender. Whether he goes to Mercedes or Aston, and whether it's for 2025 or 2026, it seems like we should expect some big Verstappen news soon, maybe even in the next few weeks. Verstappen himself is giving mixed signals. He says he's happy where he is, but also hints that anything could happen. You never know what might happen in life, he said, just like how nobody expected Lewis to move to Ferrari. So you can't say for sure how things will turn out. I take life as it comes without stressing too much.